Now you're going to get 15 seconds to grab as much money as you can. It's been 2 weeks since anyone was hurt in this.
Solving wicked business challenges by translating insight into actionable ideas. His team also builds global creativity and innovation capabilities. Felt a presence. So he previously held marketing innovation leadership positions at Alpo Pet Foods, Pillsbury, Ocean Spray, a few others, Pfizer. He's an all-around good guy. Let's give a round of applause for Keith Wilmot.
You're afraid that money machine is going to go on again, aren't you? Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, welcome. What a phenomenal start. You know, when can you come and get money, real money? All right. I am Keith Wilmot. I'll tell you a little bit about Igniter. It's honestly, it's been a real journey at Coke. I have the best job in the company. The way I describe it is, it's a huge company, obviously a global brand. We are in 206 countries, more than the United Nations. The size of our fleet is bigger than UPS and FedEx combined. And my team tries to make this company feel like a startup. So what a blast that we have. We travel all over the world, and really what we do is we help this company and our partners solve really complex business challenges. And those challenges can range from new products to new efficiencies, new financial models, new ways to grow, but it is all about growth. And it's all about driving commercial value. And that's kind of where the link is with money today, is how do you create commercial value? Regardless of whether you're in the space of finance, in the space of marketing, creative, you're a photographer, it's all about creating commercial value out of what you do. And there's a science to that. There's certain things, once an idea is created, there's a lot of science aspects to the work that we do, which is the metrics of how to make a financial model work for an idea, but there's also a behavioral aspect to that. And I'm going to spend this morning on the behavioral aspect because we believe at Igniter that the behaviors are actually more important than the science once you have an idea. Because if you don't have the right behaviors and you don't have the right approach, you never get to a really good idea. So we're going to do that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun journey. And that's how we get to money. But at the end of the day, it starts with making sure that you're solving the right business challenge. I can't tell you how many times our team gets a brief, and it's filled with business jargon, and we think it's the right brief, and when we start to dig into it, what we learn is that it isn't the right brief. We're not solving for the right problem. To bring this to life, I want to show you how many times we've had a very similar conversation at Coke, and when it comes to the briefs that we get. And I can promise you, if you're not solving the right problem, it's never going to lead to the right idea. You're not going to generate the right insight, and you certainly aren't going to create commercial value out of anything unless you're solving for the right problem. So one of the first things that we do with all Igniter projects is we make sure that we're solving for the right problem. Really critical. It's a behavioral aspect. It's not just a process. It's behavior, because it requires you to really think differently about what you're trying to solve for. What is your mission? Why are you doing what you're doing? And making sure that you're solving for that right thing. Then there's a set of behaviors, and I'll share with you 3 or 4 of them today, that we believe are just critical to the approach. Because as I said, we believe that how you behave is as important, if not more important, than the approach that you use to create commercial value. The first one is a concept called greenhousing. And if I asked you which of these is a flower and which is a weed, none of you could tell me. All right? And the only way that you could is if you allowed some water and some sun to make it grow. And far too often at Coca-Cola, we kill ideas before they have a chance to really grow, and whether they're truly a flower or whether they're a weed. I often say at Coke, we are idea expert killers. Because we're so good at saying no to things, and very few of us can say yes and encourage each other on ideas. And this is a behavioral aspect of leadership and of creating value in a marketplace that is absolutely critical. So what I want you to do is I want you to experience that versus just seeing it. So I want you to stand up, all right? Get a partner. So get into twos. Get a partner, get into twos. Try to keep quiet so you can hear me. It's a little difficult. So get in a partner, you've got twos, and here's what I want you to do. We're going to do this really quickly because we don't have a lot of time, all right? I want you to, hey, Blake's got a birthday. Blake, when's your birthday? May 11th. We're going to come up with ideas on Blake's birthday party, all right? The person with the longer hair of the partnership is going to give the ideas, all right? Yeah, you're screwed, man. All right, the person with the shorter hair, for this first run, all you're going to say is no. All right? On three, the person with the longer hair, give ideas for Blake's birthday party. The person with the shorter hair, just say no. All right, 1, 2, 3, go! All right, stop the madness. All right, how did that feel? It felt awesome, it felt powerful. No, it didn't get anywhere, I can promise you, because none of the ideas were executed, because you just said no, and it's not a good feeling. The person giving the answer no, how did it feel? It doesn't feel good, it just feels discouraging. All right, so now we're going to use a behavioral aspect of greenhousing that we use at Coke with Igniter. It's called yes and. All right. So now the same person giving the ideas, throw out an idea. The person with the shorter hair now goes yes and build on that idea and land something. All right. On three. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, stop. Take your seats, take your seats, take your seats. So how was that? Much better? All right, just one or two hands. One hand of a really good idea for Blake's birthday party. Anybody? Anybody? All right, back there. We're going to Six Flags and take the fur bus. Ooh. All right, one more, right here. Bacon party. Sweet. Invite me, please. All right. So what you just did there was that was behavioral, okay? And it's teachable and it's a learned behavior because as executives, we tend to, and as people that are trying to drive ideas, we tend to want to do something, and we tend to revert back to saying no a lot because it gives us the power. And some of you are honest. Sometimes it feels kind of good to say no. And sometimes it's good to say no, but it's also critical that we have a yes and mentality. We call that sun behavior, and that's, suspend your judgment, seek to understand what the idea is, and nurture it. Because yes and sun behavior is not allowing everything to happen. Because we don't execute everything that we do at Igniter. In fact, if we did, we'd be crazy because we wouldn't be able to drive commercial value out of those ideas. But yes and behavior actually gets to better ideas. It's not doing everything, it's just getting to better ideas that can be executed and drive that commercial value that we're trying to drive. So this is like the grandfather of all of our behaviors, and if we can just do this really well, we will be a better company for sure. The next is a concept called freshness, and this is a behavioral aspect as well. So let me just ask a question. How many of you sleep on the same side of the bed every single night? Why in the world do we do that? She takes up the other half. Oh, probably. Just try it tonight. Just go on the other side. It'll blow your mind. But what freshness is the uniqueness and quality of stimulus that you bring into your creative session. So we believe that the more unique stimulus, stuff that you bring into your whatever you're trying to do to create value, the more uniqueness that you bring in, the more creative and the bigger the idea is going to be. There's a concept in freshness that we use called related worlds. And let me just ask a question. Has anyone flown an F-16 fighter jet in this room? I usually get that response. It's really crazy. Nobody's flown them. All right. So the U.S. military had this big problem about a decade ago. They were trying to get key information to their pilots, really important information, like engine on fire, eject now. They're trying to increase the speed at which their pilots could respond to that really important information. And they started with putting more buttons in, but when you're flying Mach 4 upside down, and you've got people kind of shooting stuff at you, there's a lot going on. It's kind of hard to break through the attention of that craziness. So what they did is they asked a simple question. They said, who typically flies an F-16 fighter jet for the U.S. military? Just who usually flies them? Men, yeah. So fighter pilots, what are they? Like 19, 20-year-old males? Yeah. Okay. Where sometimes can you find a 20-year-old male? In a bar, exactly. What captures the attention of a 20-year-old male in a bar?
Female.
A female. So what the U.S. military did, which was brilliant, was they pumped into these pilots' voice, engine on fire. Eject now. And it increased the reaction time by about 70%. Because when you're flying upside down, Mach 4, and you hear that southern sultry voice say, engine on fire, you are out. And you find a U.S. military fighter pilot and ask them about Bitchin' Betty. And that's what the U.S. military named her, was Bitchin' Betty. But when they hear her voice, they are out. And that's a concept called related worlds. And for us, it's a brilliant example of using another area of the world and you taking that insight and applying it to the business challenge that we're trying to solve for. So at Igniter, we do that constantly. We're constantly looking outside of Coke and our business to help solve for problems inside of our business. And I can tell you, this is a behavior that's learned because we are creatures of habit. We get caught in ruts. We call them rivers of thinking. And the more experience that you have in whatever you do, the more deeper rivers that you create. And you literally have to trick your brain out of those rivers to get to really good creative ideas. And that's a powerful concept. So freshness, really, really important. The next is realness. And realness is all about connecting people's heads and their hearts to ideas. Because we all see so many ideas. And, at Coke, we are addicted to PowerPoint slides. I mean, this week I've been on a global conference with about 300 marketers, and honestly, I counted about 1,200 PowerPoint slides in the course of the week. But we're just addicted to it. That's how companies kind of purvey information. This is a great example of realness. All right, it's about money. Let's bring in a money cube and have people physically feel it. That's a great example of realness. Another story I love to tell, and some of you may have heard it, but there's a guy named Joe Rhodes. Does anybody know Joe Rhodes? I get that same thing. Joe was the chief Imagineer for Disney. And, phenomenal job. Imagine being the chief Imagineer for Disney. And Joe went to Africa with his family and just fell in love with the continent. He was just blown away with all things Africa. And came back to Disney. Michael Eisner was the president at the time and said, hey, listen, we need to do Africa in a real Disney sort of way. Okay, so got his team together, created this brilliant idea, brought it to the board of directors, presented the idea, and the board turned it down. And it was, he used Excel spreadsheets and all sorts of stuff. And, at the time, people were kind of going away. Zoo population, attendance was in decline, and, technology was taking over. And the board kind of felt like, we need to go in this space of more entertainment and rides and video and all that kind of stuff. Didn't get the whole Africa thing. So Joe was really defeated, walked away. But Joe was one of those guys that would just not take no for an answer. He was a yes-and type of guy. So he brought his team back and went back to Eisner and said, I want another shot in front of the board. And with big companies like Coke and Disney and things, you don't bring ideas twice to boards. They're agitated. They're typically old men. They're cranky to begin with. You don't bring ideas back to these guys. So he convinces Michael to do this, Michael Eisner, who was the president. And it was one of those deals, like, if you don't sell this, it's likely going to cost your job. So Joe walks into the second presentation, and this board is obviously agitated, and he walks into the conference room, and he's carrying a rope. And attached to the rope was a 600-pound Bengal tiger. The deal was signed in 30 minutes. Some people would say they were all afraid of being eaten, But what Joe did is he connected their head and their heart on this concept and this idea of what it would be like to be that close to an animal like that. So they launched Animal Kingdom, and I don't know if anyone's been to Animal Kingdom at Disney, but it's been the most successful, most profitable venture in the history of the company. It is attended by more people than anything else that they do, and was literally one board meeting away from not happening. That's the power of realness. So when you're thinking about, when you have an idea, man, I can't encourage you enough to make sure that you bring those ideas to life in ways that connect people's heads and their hearts to it. Let them feel it. Let them experience it. That board experienced that Animal Kingdom up close and personal, and that's really what made that thing work. The final behavior is bravery. Blake. It sounds kind of intuitive, but it really isn't, because bravery is something that is absolutely required if you're going to launch bigness, if you're going to be great, if you're going to launch stuff that's just not average. You have to be brave. And it's not just about the bravery of stepping forward with the idea, it's also about the bravery of the insight that you do. Man, our team goes all over the world and does crazy insight in crazy places. I spent a week in Istanbul, Turkey, in people's homes, and it takes bravery to go out and get that type of insight. But if you're not willing and you're not brave enough to really push the parameters of the insight and the stimulus that you bring into your business challenges or your projects, you're never going to get those great ideas. And then once you have the great idea, it takes a heck of a lot of bravery to step forward and move forward. So it is behavioral, it is a learned behavior, it is all about being comfortable with risk. But it is something that is absolutely critical to creating commercial value, because nothing in this world has ever been created without some aspect of bravery. And it is absolutely a behavior that's required. I think as Blake said, one of the things that we've done really smartly at Igniter and at Coke is we've gone around the world and we've inspired people around these behaviors and this approach, and we've skilled a bunch of people up that we call our Igniter Black Belts. And I just thought it would be fun to share with you guys this morning. This is the type of person that we're looking for with our Igniter Black Belts. These are the leadership qualities of the people that we believe are just brilliant at creating commercial value. Now, none of you, including myself, are going to be proficient in all 8 of these. There's no way. We're happy if you're 1 or 2, maybe. But it's really important that you know where you are in that spectrum, because that's where you're going to really be able to provide the most value in whatever workspace that you're in. And I'll just quickly go through a few of them. So entrepreneur is obvious. I mean, this is all about doing a lot with a little. And there's just some people that have this uncanny ability to get, to be able to create value out of stuff that just is small. And we look for people like that, and they're really valuable in certain aspects and projects that we do. Realness Machines is taking that behavior and making it really powerful. We just have people at Coke that just have this uncanny ability to bring ideas to life quickly and make models and create stuff and just make it fun and valuable. Infectious energy is a really important one. This concept came from Bono, the lead singer of U2. When he goes into big companies, the first question that he asks the CEO is, "Who's your Elvis?" And who's your Elvis? So, and what he means by that is, who is that person that when they walk in a room, people know they're in the room? They just have this uncanny ability to get stuff done, and it's called infectious energy. This can be taught, but we do believe that infectious energy is kind of a natural, God-given kind of type of thing. But it's something that is really powerful, and there's just certain people and organizations that just have this uncanny ability to get stuff done, and they have a presence about them. And we look for that with our black belts. State mastery is a really important one, and that's an executive or team member's ability to manage their personal, emotional state under any type of situation. Because I can tell you, when you're in the creative space, there's a lot of ups and downs. Projects never start here and then end here. They kind of go like this, and it's an emotional roller coaster. And people that have just this really good ability to manage their personal state are the folks that we're looking for as black belts. Dust to matter is about being able to take insight and making connections. The guy in the upper left-hand corner, Steve Jobs, often referred to creativity as the ability to make connections to things. And that's what we call dust to matter. It's being able to take some insight out there and data or whatever they see in the marketplace and then turn that into something that's tangible. Brave and Leave Big, we talked about learning agents. I mean, one of the things that we love about Igniter is, man, we learn every single day. I've got 4 kids, and I learn every single day from them. And have no patience for anyone that comes into our group that says, oh, no, I know it all, because we don't. And every day is learning. Just getting here this morning, there was learning. And then finally, make stuff happen. And that's just a critical aspect of creating commercial value, because if ideas just sit, they're just not worth anything. So if you're sitting on something that's a really good idea, make it happen, because that's when commercial value comes and that's when money comes. And we can kind of sum this up, and we often do, into really 4 words. And everything that we do about Igniter is think, lead, and behave differently. And we believe if you live by those values inside of what an organization or a business or whatever creative venture that you're doing, if you think, lead, and behave differently, it often leads to commercial value. So that's it. So it opened up for Q&A.
Let's give Keith a round of applause. So we've got about 10, 15 minutes of questions. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and if you could just repeat the question.
Sure.
Hi, good morning. How do you balance the things you were talking about being an entrepreneur? So when you don't have a group, you don't have, even like the yes and idea. Okay, if I come up with something, and of course I'm my own worst critic. So
Yep.
Who is there to balance that?
Yeah.
Or how do you, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, sometimes even when you're with yourself, yes and behavior is really important, because you can be your biggest critic. And if you don't build a value and a behavior of building on an idea and not killing it before it's too... I've killed my own ideas within my team. And without even going to my team, I'll kill something without really kind of thinking through, and how do I continue to yes and this thing so that I develop to the point where it's really good and it's something that can drive commercial value. The only other thing I would say is use your network. You have people that surround you. Use them as your sounding board and signal to them that, hey, listen, I want this feedback, all right? Can you yes and this idea? I've got this concept, I'm thinking about this. I want you to yes and it. So here's the idea, and I want you to yes and me. And we have often done that too. I'll walk down the hall and walk into our finance director's office or something and just say, hey, bro, this is what we're working on. I want you to look at this, and I want you to give me feedback on this thing. And I don't want you to judge it. I just want you to build on it. And they'll look at it and go, I don't know about that, but you can do this. But then there's brilliance in that. So use your network.
What's your filter for, rather than saying yes and kind of the no piece of it? Because you do have to say no sometimes.
Absolutely. So the question was, what is the filter? When do you say no? So we have a full process. There's a behavioral aspect to what we do, and there's a process aspect to what we do. Towards the back end of the process is when we really start to make decisions. It's kind of like expansion and reduction thinking. The beginning of our process, there's a lot of expansion thinking, and it's yes and it's greenhousing, it's freshness. But then as we start to get to ideas, then we get into reduction thinking. And then when you start to get into the metrics and the commercial side of what we do, and what are the technical aspects, what are the financial aspects, does this make sense, could we make money on this idea, that's when the yes and the no's really start to play in.
So it doesn't start in the beginning.
No.
You really start with
Yeah,
yes.
and we're really deliberate at the yes and in the beginning, and that's oftentimes where big companies fail, is they don't do enough yes and at the beginning, and they kill things too soon.
Right.
So there's a point in time where you do have to kill ideas, and sometimes the best things you can say is no to things, but make sure that you know exactly what that idea is before you kill it. So.
Is the process somewhere where we can see it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can send it. Blake's got it, and he can send it out to you. It's nothing proprietary in terms of that. Igniter is a registered trademark of the Coca-Cola company, so you can't use the mark, but the process is similar to any other agency. Blake's team at Matchstick use a very similar process to what we do.
What's your process of integrating people when they first come into Igniter, whether maybe they have a different line of thinking and they don't understand yes and?
We haze them.
Make them run laps.
Yeah. Now, it's funny. It's a great question. I mean, so one of the things that we do is we've got a partner, a guy named Chris Perez-Brown. He lives in London, just a brilliant creative guy. And we will put our black belts through an intensive offsite 4.5-day. It's kind of like boot camp. I mean, we basically tear them down and then we build them back up. And it's off-site, it's in a remote location, no cell phones. I mean, literally, they have to say goodbye to their family and friends for a week. And we put them in like the remotest parts of Turkey or the, way up in the North Georgia mountains where you can't get any cell phone coverage. And we'll spend 4.5 days with those folks going through these behaviors, going through exercises, putting them to the test to really see if they truly are black belt material. Because we're really serious about that, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to have everybody black belts. Everybody can have access to our process inside the company and can use it, but it's almost like the Navy SEALs. If you're going to be a Navy SEAL, you're going to be pretty darn good. And we're looking for that type of an individual inside of Coca-Cola and just harness that. But we want to put them through some kind of omnibuds experience so that they can prove their mettle. This side. Mr. Schinneberger.
Say you can't afford all 8 of those people, like a budget like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
What's the greatest priority of the 8?
Oh, of the 8? You know what? I'll be honest with you. I think infectious energy. I'm to the point in working in big companies all my life that I would much rather have someone who is unbelievably passionate about something than really smart about something. I'm just being honest. If I had 2 candidates, one was a Harvard MBA and one was a graduate of a B school, somewhere in can't name one off the top of my head, because I don't want to offend anybody either. So Harvard grad versus a less than Harvard grad. And the Harvard grad was this kind of snobby, arrogant, very intellectual, smart person, and the other one was just this passionate, infectious energy that just lit up a room when they walked in. 100% of the time, I'll take that person. And I think you're going to see that trend more and more and more. Companies, businesses, whatever, you need to have passion. If you don't have passion for what you do, stop doing it. Life is too short. If you don't love what you do, don't do it. And that's what the type of people will. So yeah, infectious energy would be my personal one.
How do you balance in-person collaboration versus remote creative teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question, and it's a mix. I mean, and a lot of it depends on the brief. So we started off on really understanding the problem. With our process, we'll spend a lot of time in what we call the definition phase, define phase, discovery phase, and that's really understanding what is this brief, what's the type of insight and stimulus that's needed to solve for it, and what are the different types of people that we're looking for. So if we have a project that requires a tremendous amount of entrepreneurialism, we'll tend to go to our black belts that have a really good entrepreneurial skill set. And then we'll design an approach that works with their personalities and the brief that we're trying to solve for. If the insight requires us to go to really strange places, we need people with a lot of bravery. Sometimes we're going in some really crazy areas for insight, so we need people that are brave enough to do that. So a lot of it depends on what we're trying to solve for, and it usually is a balance. And we'll build to people's own personalities and their styles and how they like to work the best. Okay.
What advice would you give to interns and up-and-coming, first-timers and agencies in the business?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is just love what you do, and if you don't, then do something else. Because again, it's funny, when Blake talked about money, I said, well, I'm going to talk about commercial value, but money has never been real important to me personally. It's doing what I felt like God was calling me to do. That's what drives me. And if you're not in love with what you do, if you don't wake up every morning and just say, man, I cannot wait to do this, then I would challenge you to do something different. Find that thing that you absolutely love. And then be so passionate about it, find your edge. What is that think, lead, behave differently aspect of what you do that you're just a little bit different, that you have a little bit of an edge, that you have some IP that just sets you apart from everyone else that does it. And that's what we look for in ideas. We just look for something we call it kind of disruptive ideas. how can we disrupt a marketplace in just a little bit of a way that no one else can do it that way? So love what you do, think, lead, behave differently, and then drive that to be disruptive in whatever space that you're in.
I'm just curious, how did Igniter come to exist? I mean, did you have like a C-level champion? Did you start it from the ground up?
We did. We started from the ground up. So Coke brought me down 7 years ago, and it was in the space of innovation. And when I came in and I assessed what was going on in the company and what was really needed, we launched this concept called Igniter. And through the course of 7 years, we've literally have trained and been a part of hundreds and hundreds of projects. Upwards of 70 to 100 black belts. And it is now a registered trademark of the company. So you've got Coke, Fanta, Sprite, and Igniter.
You talked about the dichotomy between a weed and a flower.
Yeah.
What do you think poisons the creative process? Like, what are no-nos to stay away from with you?
I think just cynicism. Cynicism is a real no-no. Thinking that you know the answer is something that we often come up with. Experience is absolutely a barrier to greenhousing. So think about that experience, because again, the more experience you have in a certain field, whatever field that you're in, the more you believe you know how the thing works. And you get caught in these rivers, and you get stuck in them. Well, that's the way we've always done it. And this is how, hey, we are a system. We sell through bottlers. This is how the bottlers work. And we get caught in these ideas that, that can't change. So that's why we need freshness, because we have to trick people out of that and say, you know what, I'm so caught and my team will often say that, we're caught in our river. We're caught in our river because we have so much experience in this space that it's actually harming us, because that experience leads to kind of status quo thinking. So we're constantly looking to break that status quo. In the back?
When you're in the creative process and you have those really valuable people that are actually more execution-minded,
Mm-hmm.
and coming up with ideas or new ideas, is there a trick you have to like helping them step back and start diving into the details, on that stuff, or is there just a further time?
Yeah, here's the thing. Detail is really important, bro. When we're doing ideas, if they lack detail, they will get killed. So don't be afraid of creatives that dive into detail. I think there's a certain part where it can become a barrier, but if you don't have the facts and you don't have the text and the specs, and it's hard to make an idea commercial without a lot of detail. So my team we call it a balance of money and magic. There's a money aspect, which is kind of the detail. How does this idea work? What are the intricacies of the idea? How does it connect with the system? What are the financials? What does the P&L look like? What's the cost? What's the return? So there's a lot of detail that goes in it, and it's absolutely necessary. But then there's a magic aspect to it. How do we make it shine? How does it be disruptive? How can we bring this thing to life so that it connects to executives' heads and their hearts? But don't shy away from the detail, because it's really important. Because really detail gets the job done, and it's what really makes an idea really commercial, is when it has that level of detail that it can be executed.
All right, one more question.
Yeah, I'm interested in the realness portion.
Sure.
Connecting heads with hearts. At least for the two examples, the money cube and the Bengal tiger, those
Mm-hmm.
are experiences.
Yep.
That normally require money, except
Yep.
for if you have the social connections to get MailChimp to pay for a money cube. But how can you make realness free?
Yeah.
Or any ways to do that?
So I'll give you a great example. We did we have a brand called Dasani. Does anybody know what Dasani? Ever heard of it? Okay. So yeah, it's a water. So Dasani, we were working with Dasani in a certain part of the world, and we were having some market share wasn't there. It just wasn't delivering what we were looking to deliver, and we said, well, we have to bring this idea to life in a powerful way. So we literally had our marketers go through this acting exercise, and one marketer assumed the brand Dasani, and one marketer assumed the brand Evian, and one marketer assumed the brand of some other Switzerland-based product. And the Evian brand marketer gets up and goes, I'm Evian. I'm from the freshest part of the world, and I love, my taste's so sweet. And the other one I'm from the Swiss Alps, and how couldn't I be perfect? I'm from the Swiss. And the poor Dasani guy goes, I'm not sure what I am. and boom, an insight. All right, we've got some real issues with positioning on this product. That was a form of realness that cost us nothing. So think about bringing ideas to life. Like, all right, you can act, you can write. You can look at songs. You can put collages together. You can do models. You can bring clay in and create. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do to bring ideas to life. Sell them in a way that's not static. The more physical that you make an idea, the more you make them act it out or make them feel the experience. It can either be physical, emotional, sound, smells. Sometimes use all senses. I mean, that's the one thing that we always look for is how do we make an idea. How can we experience it with all of our senses? All right.
Let's give a round of applause for Keith.